Can a light-sensing drug help restore vision? Understanding the newest KIO-301 research. Inherited retinal diseases like retinitis pigmentosa, RP, slowly destroy the eye's light-sensing cells, rods and cones. Over time, people with these conditions lose most of their vision and can even go completely blind. For example, RP affects about 1 in 4,000 people worldwide. Currently, there are very few treatments once vision is lost. Only one FDA-approved gene therapy for a rare form of RP exists, and most patients still have no option to restore sight. This has led scientists to try new ideas. One exciting approach uses a photoswitch drug, essentially a special molecule that can turn on retinal neurons when it sees light. KIO-301 is one such experimental drug. It is described as a molecular photoswitch. In healthy vision, photoreceptors, rods and cones, detect light and send signals to downstream cells called retinal ganglion cells, RGCs, which then pass information up to the brain. But in advanced retinal disease, photoreceptors are gone, while RGCs often survive. KIO-301 is designed to target these surviving RGCs. After being injected into the eye, the drug enters RGCs and can make them respond directly to light. In other words, it aims to bypass the dead photoreceptors and have the ganglion cells stand in as new light sensors. A simple way to think of a photoswitch drug is like a tiny light-activated on-off switch in the eye. In darkness, it stays off, and when normal room light shines on it, it flips on and triggers the cell to fire its signal. In the case of KIO-301, researchers say it turns on under light and turns off in the dark, acting just like a light switch inside the eye. For comparison, genes therapy works very differently. It would involve inserting a healthy gene into cells to fix a genetic defect. KIO-301 is not a gene therapy. It is a small molecule injected into the vitreous fluid of the eye that temporarily gives existing cells a new function. It does not change DNA and is meant to be given repeatedly, about once a month, rather than as a one-time permanent fix. How this treatment is supposed to work. KIO-301 takes advantage of the fact that RGCs are still alive in many blinding retinal diseases. Once photoreceptors die, the drug can find and enter the RGCs. According to Kiora, the biopharma company developing it, KIO-301 enters specific ion channels in each ganglion cell. It then waits for light. In the dark, off position, it has little effect on the cell. When a person with KIO-301 in their eye looks at light, the drug molecule changes shape, flips to the on form, and that alteration causes the ganglion cell to fire and send an electrical signal toward the brain. When the light is removed, KIO-301 flips back to its off shape and the signal stops. Without light off, KIO-301 stays in its inactive form and the cell remains quiet. With light on, the molecule flips shape, altering an ion channel and activating the neuron, which then sends a light-detected signal to the visual center of the brain. This process is completely reversible. Just like flipping a switch on and off, the drug works only while the light is on and does not permanently change the cell. In effect, KIO-301 turns the ganglion cells into stand-in photoreceptors, using light to trigger them instead of the missing rod's cones. A similar idea was shown in lab studies. Earlier research found that related photoswitch chemicals could restore visual responses in blind mouse retinas for days to weeks. The concept is that a tiny synthetic molecule can give light sensitivity to cells that normally don't respond to light. Because KIO-301 works by giving RGCs a direct light response, it does not depend on the patient's specific gene mutation. This is one advantage over gene therapy, which usually targets a specific faulty gene. Instead of fixing a particular gene defect, KIO-301 is meant to work in any patient whose photoreceptors have degenerated. It uses biology the cells already have and simply bypasses the need for functioning rods and cones. Again, it's important to note, KIO-301 is for retina-based blindness, like RP, Stargardt disease, etc., not for glaucoma. Glaucoma is caused by damage to the optic nerve and increased eye pressure, which is a different problem. KIO-301 has nothing to do with optic nerve pressure in glaucoma, so it would not help glaucoma patients. However, this research is still relevant to the larger vision restoration field. The idea of relighting the visual pathway could potentially inspire other treatments for different eye conditions in the future. Latest research on KIO-301. So far, KIO-301 has been tested only in very early human studies. The first trial, called Abacus 1, was a Phase 2 safety study done in 2023 on a total of 6 patients, each receiving an injection in both eyes. Half the patients could still perceive some light, ultra-low vision, and half could not perceive any light at all. In November 2023, Kiora presented top-line results from this trial. Although the study was primarily about showing the drug was safe, and it appeared to be safe, with no serious side effects reported, the investigators also saw encouraging hints of vision improvement. Wider visual fields, the area of vision that patients could see, measured by Goldman perimetry, improved significantly within 7 to 14 days after the injection. In simple terms, patients were able to detect light farther out into their peripheral vision than before. Sharper vision lines. In the group that got the highest dose, people on average were able to read about 3 additional lines on an eye chart, using a special test for ultra-low vision. In other words, their acuity improved, which means they could see larger letters than before. This was a strong trend at high dose, though the small patient number meant the result did not quite reach statistical proof in that trial. Light perception. Among those who were completely blind, some showed new ability to perceive light. Specifically, many could now tell the direction of movement or location of a bright exit sign or window when tested. This means a few patients who previously could not tell any light from dark were able to locate a light source after treatment. Functional vision. In mobility tests where patients had to find a door in varying light conditions, the group's success rate roughly doubled post-treatment. Although statistically this was not proven in such a small study, it suggested patients handled a lit environment better. Patient experiences. Some patients themselves said they noticed real changes in everyday life. One participant who had been blind for over 10 years reported, "During my time on this trial, it gave me the ability to once again see light for about a month." Others mentioned improved contrast sensitivity and making out larger objects. Researchers also used a quality of life questionnaire and saw a small numeric improvement, about 3 points on a 100-point scale, which is considered a meaningful change. Brain signals. In a follow-up analysis presented in May 2024, fMRI scans showed that brain activity in the visual cortex increased significantly after KIO-301 treatment. Even though this trial was tiny, both blind and light-perceiving, patient groups had more active vision areas on brain imaging. This supports the idea that the drug was doing something real to turn on visual pathways. Safety and duration. Importantly, KIO-301 proved safe and well-tolerated in this small trial. There were no serious eye inflammations or adverse effects reported. The drug stayed effective for roughly the duration predicted by lab studies, about 4 weeks on average from one injection, after which its effect faded. Overall, these findings are promising signs that KIO-301 can create a proof of concept. In other words, it shows that a light-sensing drug can induce measurable vision signals in blind eyes. Eyes treated with KIO-301 responded to light in ways they hadn't before. However, it's crucial to remember what proof of concept means here. This was a very small safety study, not a definitive test of effectiveness. What can we say about these results? Patients in the trial did appear to gain some benefits, but with important caveats. The sample size was tiny, 6 subjects, 12 eyes, and there was no untreated control group in this first test. In fact, the company notes the study was not powered to primarily assess efficacy. It was mainly to check safety and look for any positive signals. Only the visual field improvement reached standard statistical significance. Most other outcomes were reported as positive trends. That means while the early data suggest KIO-301 can help, it is not yet proof that it works reliably in all patients. Another key point, all reported improvements were in carefully controlled tests. For instance, patients were tested with special eye charts and lighting setups. In the real world, like reading a book or recognizing faces, we don't yet know how much difference KIO-301 makes. The effect also appears short-lived. Studies so far only followed patients for a month after the shot. We do not yet have information on longer use, repeated injections, or how vision might improve or plateau if the drug is given regularly. The Phase 2 trial, Abacus 2, is now gearing up. In late 2024, Kiora announced that regulators in Australia approved a larger, placebo-controlled Phase 2 study to start in 2025. This trial is planned to enroll about 36 patients with ultra-low vision from advanced RP. The primary goals will be to confirm the safety seen so far and to rigorously measure vision changes against a sham injection. If all continues well, Kiora believes this line of testing could expand to a Phase 3 registration trial in a few years. Limitations and next steps. It's still very early days. The company has not shared any Phase 2 results yet as of March 2026. Every step beyond Phase 2 will involve many more patients and a longer timeline. Even if Phase 2 shows positive results, patients should not assume KIO-301 will be widely available soon. New therapies typically require multiple phase trials over several years before approval. For example, a quote noted that if Phase 2 is successful, a Phase 3 could follow in the US and Europe, so an approved treatment is likely still several years away, if it happens at all. What patients should and should not assume from early results. Based on the above, here are some realistic takeaways for patients. Do assume that KIO-301 is experimental and early in development. The human data so far come from a very small clinical trial. Scientists themselves emphasize these are preliminary results, mainly showing safety and only hinting at benefit. Expect that we'll need larger studies to really understand how well it works. Do assume that any vision changes seen were measured under test conditions. If someone on the trial sees again, it may mean noticing larger objects, contrasts, or lights, not normally reading an eye chart without aid. For example, some patients could only tell the position of a lit door or see a big bright letter, which is very different from everyday vision. So results may sound exciting, but they don't translate to normal sight yet. Do assume the effect so far lasts about a month from one injection. We do not yet know if its duration could increase or decrease with repeat dosing, or if the eye might change over time. Do not assume that you will definitely have these improvements. Not every patient in the trial got the same benefit. Some saw more light than before, others saw almost no change. The trial size is too small to predict who will benefit or how much. Do not assume that KIO-301 will fully restore vision. Think of it as potentially boosting some light perception, not returning one's sight to normal. Patients should continue to use any existing aids, like low vision devices, and not count on this drug as a complete solution. Do not assume it is a cure for all blindness. KIO-301 is aimed at advanced inherited retinal diseases where photoreceptors have died. It will not help people who are blind for other reasons, like optic nerve damage from glaucoma or unrelated brain issues. It also won't improve things like refraction problems, nearsightedness, or cataracts. Its effect is specific to the retinal photoreceptor pathway. Do not assume an exact timeline for getting it. As noted above, multiple trial phases remain. If Phase 2, 2025-2026 is positive, Phase 3 would come later. Even after trials, regulatory review takes time. Patients should expect many years before, if ever, KIO-301 might be an approved treatment. In summary, KIO-301 represents a novel idea supported by encouraging early science. That is hopeful for people who currently have no options, but it is far from a guarantee. Anyone interested in the future of this therapy should follow the trial results closely and talk with their eye doctor or a research center about preserving vision and potential trial opportunities. This research is one of several approaches aiming to restore sight in blind patients. Others include electronic retinal implants, stem cell grafts, and optogenetic therapies using gene-engineered light proteins. Each method has pros and cons. The advantage of KIO-301 is that it is minimally invasive, just an injection, and doesn't permanently alter cells. Its downside is that it likely provides only partial and temporary vision, and we don't yet know how natural or detailed that vision will be. Conclusion. Scientists and patients alike are hopeful that new technologies can eventually help people with blinding retinal diseases. KIO-301 is an example of a promising light-sensing drug under study. Early trials show that it is safe and can trigger some vision signals. Improvements in visual fields, acuity charts, and brain activity have been seen in a few patients. These results are encouraging, but they come from a very small group and must be confirmed. In plain terms, KIO-301 may give some people a small window of new light perception, but it is not a cure or proven therapy yet. Patients should stay informed and realistic. Those with advanced inherited retinal disease can watch for updates from clinical trials or news from organizations like the Foundation Fighting Blindness. If KIO-301 or similar drugs become approved someday, it might slow or reverse blindness for patients with very low vision. Until then, it is a concept worth pursuing closely as part of the broader effort to turn science fiction into sight. All links to sources are available in the text version of this article. You can find the full article at visualfieldtest.com. Thanks for listening. To check your visual field, click the link at the bottom of this article or visit visualfieldtest.com.